In the headlines on this Friday, the main opposition party offers another proposal on how to proceed with the Prime Minister nominee's confirmation, which could further delay President Park Geun-hye's planned cabinet reshuffle. Even after a marathon meeting, officials failed to reach a decision on whether to continue operating one of Korea's oldest nuclear reactors, the Hwalsung-1. Another round of debate will take place later this month. And a peace deal between Moscow and Kiev is reached for eastern Ukraine. A ceasefire will go into effect starting on February 15th. These stories and more coming right up. Hello and welcome everyone. This is Early Edition at 6, live from Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. Prime Minister nominee Lee Won-gu has been facing strong resistance from the main opposition party. That's no news.
That's right. What's new today is that the party has another proposal regarding Lee's confirmation a day after the two main rival parties agreed to postpone the vote yesterday. Arirang News' National Assembly correspondent Park Ji-won fills us in.
The leader of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party has a fresh proposal regarding the confirmation of Prime Minister nominee Lee Won-gu.
Our party proposes the presidential office and the ruling party conduct a joint public opinion poll. Our party is ready to accept the result.
Speaking at the party's Supreme Council meeting on Friday morning, the former presidential candidate added that his party is facing a difficult situation. He said the Liberal Party doesn't want to cause a vacuum in state affairs, but given the allegations surrounding his past, the nominee does not have the qualifications to be Prime Minister. Moon urged the nominee to think deeply about what he can do to not burden the president, hinting to Lee that he could choose to withdraw voluntarily. In response, ruling Saenuri Party floor leader Yoo Seung-min said it was regrettable that the opposition party has changed the mutually agreed plan overnight.
It is very regrettable that the chairman of the main opposition party will make such a change in just a day.
Yoo reiterated that the rival parties had agreed Thursday to push the vote back until Monday and stressed that his party will go ahead with the vote on Monday as planned. The Conservative Party leader added that approval of the Prime Minister nominee is the Assembly's constitutional right, and Moon's offer goes against the principle of separation of powers. Meanwhile, a new Gallup poll shows about 4 out of 10 Korean people think Lee is an inappropriate candidate for the Prime Minister post. The survey was conducted on over 1,000 people nationwide from Tuesday to Thursday, a period that includes a 2-day confirmation hearing process. The mounting allegations surrounding Lee, from real estate speculation to his and his son's military service record, and his remarks about voting power over the media, all contributed to his fall from grace in the eyes of the public, possibly jeopardizing his chances at the nation's second highest position. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, postponing the vote means President Park Geun-hye will have to wait until next week to carry out her cabinet reshuffle.
Well, the word was that the shakeup would take place this week, but the situation at the parliament left her no choice but to delay that mini reshuffle.
Our presidential office correspondent Choi Yoo-sun has more.
On Thursday, the spokesperson at the presidential office of Cheongwade said President Park stands by the principle of carrying out the reshuffles after the Prime Minister nominee is approved and recommends her cabinet. The National Assembly Speaker has said the Parliament will vote on Prime Minister nominee Lee Won-gu on Monday, with or without the opposition party present. That means the president's shakeups are likely to occur the same day or the next. With her economic revitalization plan and reform drive in need of a boost and her approval ratings hitting an all-time low, the president is expected to waste no time appointing people to get state business on track. Reports of Korean ambassador to China Kwon Young-se's pending replacement Thursday roused speculation that Kwon, one of President Park's confidants, may be named the new presidential chief of staff. Current Chief of Staff Kim Ki-chun is widely speculated to step down after completing the reorganization of the presidential office. 2 to 3 cabinet ministers are likely to be replaced. A ruling party lawmaker close to the president, Yoo Ki-jun, is the highly anticipated candidate for Oceans Minister, while the Unification and Transport Ministers are other positions that could also be changed. President Park, who had named special advisors to bolster communication in running the country, is also set to announce a lineup of her political advisors. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
And in other domestic news, a decision on whether to close one of Korea's longest-serving nuclear power reactors has been postponed. The fate of the reactor will be decided later this month, but local residents are demanding the reactor be closed immediately. For more on this story, here's Kwon So-ah.
오늘도 굉장히 긴 하루가 될 것으로 예상을 합니다.
Delayed once again. Despite a marathon meeting on Thursday, the fate of Korea's second oldest nuclear reactor hangs in the balance, with a third meeting on the issue scheduled for the end of this month. Korea's nuclear watchdog needs to decide on whether to restart the Hwalsung-1 reactor or to shut it down forever. The nuclear plant, one of 23 in the nation, was temporarily shut down for review after it reached its designed lifespan. Last October, the Nuclear Safety Board evaluated the Hwalsung-1 as safe to go for another 10 years. It's not uncommon practice to extend the life of reactors. The oldest Kori-1 reactor is already 8 years into an extension it received in 2007. Those arguing for an extension not only cite safety, but that it costs less than building a new plant and is less harmful to the environment. But residents of Gyeongju, where the plant is located, and environmentalist groups see the issue differently, claiming the reactor has to be shut down immediately and permanently. The debate has been growing since Korea's state-run nuclear power agency called for an expansion of the Hwalsung-1 reactor's lifespan in 2009. Demonstrators gathered in front of the Nuclear Commission's headquarters, raising safety concerns which could lead to a disaster like Japan's Fukushima accident.
We are worried about nuclear radiation. They say the amount is less than what comes from taking an X-ray, but we don't take X-rays 365 days a year. We do breathe in the air every day.
With even experts divided on the issue, more deliberation on the matter seems unavoidable. And adding extra weight to the Hwalsung-1 decision is a line of other aging reactors waiting to be judged on their operational lifespans. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Korean Air nut rage incident wasn't the first involving chaebol members, but this one had a different ending. The former vice president of Korean Air received a stronger punishment than similar previous cases. Our Shin Se-min tells us why.
The so-called nut rage incident of Korean Air VP Cho Hyun-ah isn't the first time that Korean chaebol has been in the spotlight. Korean conglomerate families and executives of other major corporations are often seen abusing their power. Back in 2013, an executive of leading Korean steelmaker POSCO assaulted a flight attendant, hitting her in the face with a magazine on a plane bound for Los Angeles. He was complaining about his undercooked instant noodles, and he was removed from his post. In another incident on an airplane, the former president of Taegwang Industry boarded drunk, causing a stir on his domestic flight and delayed the departure for over an hour. He was sentenced to 120 hours of community service, but only served 6 months in prison. But something about the nut rage case was different. One experienced lawyer says the case drew extra attention because of the public outcry against conglomerates and their privileges.
Cho Hyun-ah's nut rage could have resulted in no jail time, but the public sentiment seemed to influence the court's ruling, and they gave her an actual prison sentence. The public's hostile view of chaebol families, privileged, with an easy life coming from wealthy parents, was loud and clear this time.
He added that the case could prove to be significant because it could impact the way the court treats chaebol families and how the families behave in public. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Business partners face a one-day entry ban. 77.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best. With Laah Hyun-kyung and Daniel Choy.
Arirang News. Arirang News.
On Early Edition at 6.
A much-anticipated agreement has been reached in Belarus. The leaders of Russia and Ukraine were able to agree on a ceasefire in conflict-hit eastern Ukraine. This was, of course, made possible with help from Germany and France. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
Peace talks aimed at ending the deadly fighting in eastern Ukraine have concluded with a breakthrough. A ceasefire is set to be implemented starting midnight on Friday 15th in parts of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. The agreement was reached after a 16-hour talk between leaders of Russia, Ukraine, France, and Germany.
It wasn't the very best night of my life, but the morning, in my view, was kind, because despite all of the difficulties in the process, we managed to agree on the main issues.
I can say that everything was difficult, and in fact various unacceptable conditions were put to us, conditions of retreat, of surrender.
The specifics will now need to be ironed out, but the deal also calls for Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian rebels to withdraw their heavy weapons from the front lines to create a buffer zone of 50 kilometers. It also calls for constitutional reform to grant eastern Ukraine more autonomy. Now the question is, will the ceasefire hold, as the summit talks came amid bloody clashes between the Ukrainian army and rebels? But if it does, it will bring an end to the 10-month conflict that has claimed more than 5,000 lives. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the European Union could impose further sanctions should the deal fail to be fully implemented. A ceasefire in September fell apart within days as both sides tried to expand their areas of control. The agreement came as the IMF announced a bailout program of $17.5 billion for Ukraine, which is part of an economic revitalization plan that aims to create a $40 billion lifeline for the war-torn country. The World Bank will also provide $2 billion of that package. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The UN Security Council has passed a resolution aimed at preventing money from flowing to IS. The resolution, led by Russia, addresses revenue streams from three things: black market oil, Syrian antiquities, and ransoms. Now, let's have a listen to the Russian ambassador to the UN first.
We believe this is the type of case which clearly shows the need for the use of collective efforts to resolve issues we are facing. Having adopted Resolution 2199, we took yet another very important step in suppressing the funding of terrorists first and foremost as a result of the illegal trafficking of oil.
Now, all of the Council's 15 member states voted unanimously to adopt the resolution that targets both the extremist group and Syria's al-Nusra Front. It bans all trade of historical artifacts from Syria, which the UN believes the group is looting and selling to support its activities. A November report also estimated that IS makes roughly $1 million a day from selling stolen oil, though U.S. officials believe that figure has fallen significantly. The UN resolution also urged countries to choose not to pay ransoms, as the world body estimates the militant group raises more than $100,000 a day from such payments. Palestine's move to become an official member of the International Criminal Court is facing objections from other member countries. Arirang News' Hwang Sung-hee had a chance to sit down with the Palestinian Foreign Minister. They talked about this issue and much more. Take a look.
We are seeking, partial, proportional kind of justice. Yes, we have suffered a lot since the Israeli occupation that have really started in 1967. And if justice and investigation by the ICC will also include what Palestinians have done in the latest Israeli aggression, well, we are ready to receive that investigation and also to respond to that investigation. We have nothing really to hide, and we are seeking, justice, even if that means we have to pay a certain price.
But the United States said it will cut off aid to Palestine if it joins ICC. Aren't you worried?
We are worried, absolutely. We are worried because we receive almost $450 million a year in terms of aid from the United States to Palestinian economy and infrastructure. But unfortunately, the United States' opposition to our accession is due to the fact that the United States believes that such accession might really undermine the image of the State of Israel. If Israel didn't do anything in violation of international law, and if Israel believes that it didn't commit any crime against the Palestinian people, why Israel or the United States of America are afraid from us being member of the International Criminal Court?
At this point, is Palestine willing to talk things out with Israel?
We have tried through U.S. intermediary to be able to find a solution to the conflict through 9 months negotiations, which has really failed due to the intransigence on the Israeli side. The question is Israel ready to re-engage again? And I will tell you that Israel is not ready. And we have to wait until after elections to see if there is any partner on the Israeli side who is willing really to engage in serious negotiations that will put an end to Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories and will allow the establishment of an independent Palestinian state that will live side by side with the state of Israel.
Has the unity government with Hamas come to an end?
Well, no, it didn't come to an end yet. Yes, I admit we have so many obstacles. Yes, I admit that Hamas is not collaborating enough in order really to see that the government takes full responsibility in Gaza. For that purpose, the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is going to dispatch this week a high-level delegation of the PLO to Gaza to enter into discussions with Hamas in order for the Palestinian government to be able to work fully and responsibly, in Gaza, and to provide the type of services that is needed by the Palestinian people in Gaza.
Is the Palestinian Authority standing behind reports that ISIS is operating inside the Gaza Strip?
Well, I wonder, is that really true? I don't think that's really true. There are rumors that, there are maybe sympathizers with ISIS in Gaza, the way that we have seen sympathizers with ISIS in most of the European countries. But, we are taking this issue seriously, and we are taking all preventive measures in order to prevent any kind of situation to emerge in that nature.
Thank you, Minister, for your time today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Moving over to the Telegram, Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi says it's planning to increase its presence in the United States. A bold move by a brand that is seen by many as a brand that is paying a great, honor in the form of flattery, which is imitation to Apple, the U.S. smartphone maker. Our Kim Ji-yeon has this report.
Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi announced plans Thursday in San Francisco to advance into the U.S. market. Within a few months, it's opening an online shop for U.S. consumers with smartphone accessories, including headphones and high-capacity batteries. But Xiaomi says it's taking baby steps, adding the company is not planning to launch phones in the U.S. anytime soon. Xiaomi's Vice President Hugo Borra says it's trying to gradually raise its brand awareness in the U.S. market. The move is seen as an attempt to move away from the idea that it's a Chinese copycat version of Apple. Barra quickly dispelled concerns of intellectual property lawsuits, a factor that's been blamed for keeping Xiaomi out of the U.S. market. He says hundreds of patent applications are being filed to deal with IP concerns, particularly those related to industrial design. Barra also pointed to other factors such as software and hardware localization and after-sales service as challenges that Xiaomi is focusing on. Xiaomi elbowed past Apple and Korea-based Samsung Electronics in China last year, only 3 years after selling its first smartphone. Based on the Android operating system, Xiaomi's phones boast high quality but cost less than their rivals. Xiaomi is currently valued at $45 billion. The company sold 61 million phones last year, tripling its sales from the previous year. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories, the International Monetary Fund says Korea might be able to meet growth estimates for this year, but warned that the country's policymakers need to brace for risks as the economy is facing a storm of uncertainties. The IMF on Friday cut the country's growth forecast by 0.3% to 3.7%, It urged the Korean government to avoid self-reinforcing scenarios, low inflation and low growth, which would become a difficult dynamic to break. The recommendation comes as Seoul finds itself influenced by the U.S. Federal Reserve's rate normalization trend and a global wave of monetary easing, along with Korea's rapid aging and slowing exports. Meanwhile, the government is looking to give the nation's infrastructure-focused construction companies the best shot at cracking markets overseas. Korea's Land and Infrastructure Ministry signed an agreement with various public agencies, including the Korea Investment Corporation, on Friday, that will see the creation of a joint council. This team will be in charge of researching the investment environment of various overseas markets and identifying new business opportunities. Once identified, either the KIC will invest in these business plans or public agencies will take part in the projects as facility operators.
If no actions are taken now, Korea's National Pension Fund will likely run into trouble. The National Pension Research Institute says the number of beneficiaries will exceed that of subscribers by the year 2060. Now, this means there will be fewer people paying into the fund, so eventually one subscriber would be supporting more than one beneficiary. The institute attributes this to the country's low birth rate and the rapidly growing aging population. Researchers are calling for a revision in the pension system as it will fail to serve the purpose of supporting every age group. Korea became an aging society in the year 2000 and is said to be on its way towards becoming a super aging society in around 10 years. And on to a different topic now. It's really amazing to see how artists, directors, and writers come up with fascinating stories and fresh ideas, because for many people, it's really hard to find inspiration.
Right, but there's an interesting trend, at least in the field of TV dramas, where directors from abroad are looking to Korean dramas for new inspiration. Our Connie Lee has this story.
It's one of the major cultural exports pumped out of Korea. Korean TV shows, more simply known as K-dramas, are becoming a source of inspiration for TV producers outside of the country.
I really believe that Korea is the next frontier.
The next frontier?
That's why I'm here. One of the reasons we came is we've already optioned a number of formats, Korean formats.
Marty Alderstein, a top producer of the popular American TV series Prison Break and Last Man Standing, is now in Seoul, and he's on the lookout. At the Content Insight seminar hosted by the Korea Creative Content Agency, he and other industry leaders spoke on what really makes for good TV.
What people want to watch are characters and storytelling. One of the Israeli channels told me that Korean soap operas sell really well in Israel, and that sort of piqued my interest. I couldn't figure out why, and then I understood, because of the strong storylines and the attractiveness of the people, and they sell very well around the world.
Exports of Korean TV content have been steadily increasing in recent years, with about 24 countries on the receiving end. And now there looks to be greater potential for continued growth, with more show producers looking abroad for the best story ideas.
It's happening all the time right now. It's kind of all the rage.
John David Coles, who directed hit shows like Sex and the City and most currently House of Cards, credits his own success to strong storylines that are culturally transcendent.
Because at the heart, there's a simple, strong premise. That's a story, really, not a complicated plot.
Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Good evening, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. The wind has subsided and we are looking at clear skies nationwide with a visibility of 20 kilometers. However, the dry weather continues here in Korea, mainly focused on the eastern side of the peninsula, and along with the light wind that we still have, it's a perfect environment for fire, so be extra careful. Luckily, we have some rain in store for us this Sunday in some areas, including here in Seoul, which is expected to expand nationwide on Monday, taking away the dryness. But until then, we can expect milder conditions tomorrow with clear skies down south, but a bit cloudy here in the capital, so plan out your weekend accordingly. Taking a closer look at the readings for tomorrow, so we'll start off the Saturday morning at -2 and gets up to 8 in the afternoon, while Daegu and Busan will top out at 13 and 12 degrees. Moving over to other regions, Jeju Island is in fact warm at 14, Dokdo hits 5, while Mount Keungang will be right on at 0 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that does it for us this week. Have a great start to your day or a safe drive home. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. Have a great weekend, everyone. Daniel and I will be back next week. Bye-bye for now.